William Bill Parrish is a successful media mogul who runs a multi-million-dollar media firm in New York. After witnessing the death of his beloved wife, he feels hollow inside and begins to believe that death is now chasing him as well. He is approaching his 65th birthday and hears strange voices in his head at night. Bill has two daughters, Allison and Susan. Allison is the eldest of the two and somewhat meddlesome. She is married to Quince, a board member in Bill's firm. His youngest and favorite daughter is Susan, a lovely young girl. Susan is a resident in internal medicine, and like her sister Allison, she dates Drew, another one of Bill's board members. Allison plans an extravagant birthday party for her father. She is excited and nervous. She wants to make the party perfect for her father. She is worried about her father's health and happiness, and hopes he will enjoy his special day. She asks Bill for his favorite items to place at the party. Bill ignores her and shows no interest. Susan joins them. Drew arrives on the helicopter and meets with Susan and Bill. Drew proposes to Bill an offer. He asks Bill to merge his firm with another media giant for more profits. Bill doesn't give any clear answer to Drew. Inside the helicopter, Bill inquires if Susan loves Drew and wants to marry him. Susan is unhappy with her relationship with Drew, who is more interested in his career than her feelings. Susan gives her father a mixed response. Listening to Susan's ambiguous answer, Bill realizes Susan is not genuinely attracted to Drew. He advises Susan to wait and not make any hasty decision. When the helicopter lands, the strange voice reappears in Bill's head. He attempts to ignore it and leaves for the office. Susan goes to the cafe to grab a cup of coffee before going to work. A vibrant young man catches Susan's attention. The young man starts a conversation with Susan, and they have an instant chemistry. He flirts with Susan, and she enjoys talking with him. The young man tells Susan that he is traveling around the world. He tells Susan that he has no fixed plans or goals. He asks Susan what she does, and she tells him she is a doctor. The young man admires Susan's passion and dedication to her work. He tells her she is beautiful and intelligent, and that he likes her. Susan tells him that she has a fiancé. However, she is charmed by the young man's compliments and sincerity. She feels a connection with him that she has never felt with Drew. The young man leaves the cafe without telling Susan his name. Susan feels happy and excited. She looks back at the young man to ask his name. However, the young man doesn't turn around or stop. Shortly after, the young man gets struck by a car and dies in a road accident. Later that evening, Bill is informed of a visitor at the dinner table. As Bill approaches the room to meet the visitor, he hears the mysterious voices again. Only this time, however, those voices slowly materialize and take the form of a young man, the same man Susan met in the morning. The young man introduces himself as the Angel of Death, saying he has acquired this mortal body from a man who died today. The Angel of Death tells Bill that he has come to take his soul. Bill is shocked and terrified but tries to act calm and polite. Bill negotiates a deal with the Angel of Death. Bill agrees to be his guide on Earth, showing him around the world of mortals. The Angel of Death accepts his offer. Bill introduces the Angel of Death as Joe Black at the dining table to his family. He tells them that Joe is an old friend who has come to visit him. Joe draws unnecessary attention to himself. He appears incapable of using utensils and knowing how to eat or drink. A little while later, Susan shows up at the table and recognizes the man she had met earlier that day. The young man, now a vessel for the Angel of Death, has no recollection of their encounter in the coffee shop. After dinner, Joe explores the lavish home as he tries to adjust. He goes to the kitchen and behaves awkwardly around the kitchen staff due to his unfamiliarity with the customs of mortal men. The butler offers Joe a spoonful of peanut butter that Joe likes. He then goes to Susan, licking the peanut butter spoon, and voyeurs on her while she swims. Susan gets uncomfortable by Joe's presence and confronts him. Instead of apologizing, Joe offers Susan to put the peanut butter spoon in her mouth. He says it would feel sweet in her mouth and make her feel good. The next day, Joe says he will give Bill more time to live and enjoy his family and friends if he allows him to tag along with him everywhere he goes. Bill unwillingly consents to Joe's request since Bill is unsure how to reject it. However, Bill asks him not to interfere with his business life or his family. Joe says this is a deal and assures him that he will not harm or interfere with his life or anyone else in his family. Even though Bill is aware of his situation, that these are his final days on Earth, he fails to prevent it from spiraling out of hand very quickly. Bill accompanies Joe to his office. Joe meets Bill's employees and business partners and acts as Bill's advisor and confidant. Drew presents a merger proposal to the company's board of directors and aggressively pushes for the deal. Joe, having no sophisticated human qualities, draws unnecessary attention to himself. He appears incapable of using an office chair and knowing how to sit appropriately. Bill, however, as the company's chairman, vetoes Drew's proposal. Drew blames Joe for Bill's veto and starts getting hostile towards him. On the other hand, Susan begins to feel dissatisfied with her relationship with Drew. She starts to see Drew for the person he truly is. She is intrigued by Joe's innocence and realizes he is considerably different from the young man in the coffee shop. She develops a fascination for this diffident, yet seductive and mysterious Joe Black. Joe also feels a magnetic attraction towards Susan and makes love to her while being influenced by human desires. Joe asks Susan, "What do we do now?" She replies, "It'll come to us." The situation gets messy when Bill finds them kissing. He informs Joe that this was not part of their agreement. Disregarding Bill's feelings, Joe proclaims his plan to take Susan with him. Bill then approaches Susan and advises her to stop loving Joe, claiming that Joe won't be around for a long time. The movie reveals the true intention of Drew. Drew secretly conspires with the CEO of Bill's rival company, who wants to acquire Bill's firm through a merger. He capitalizes on Bill's strange behavior and reliance on Joe. Drew lobbies for the merger's approval by presenting information to the board members that Quince has given to him accidentally. He paints Bill as untrustworthy and unfit for the chairman position. Drew's plan works, and all except one board member of directors disqualifies Bill as the company's chairman. When he sees his one action made Drew successful in convincing the board of directors to remove Bill as chairman, Quince confronts Drew. Quince says he approves of the merger deal. However, removing Bill from the chairman position was not part of the plan. Drew says it's his mistake not to see this coming. Joe goes to the hospital to meet Susan. Joe walks along the corridor and tries to find Susan. Joe sees a grandma in a wheelchair who is staring at him. Joe decides to meet her. The grandma is suffering from a terminal illness. She tells Joe that she has recognized his secret. She tells him that he is the angel of death. Joe gets shocked. She forbids Joe to be involved in love with a mortal woman, as it will complicate things for that woman. The grandma talks with Joe about the meaning of life and death. She aids Joe in realizing that he is dangerously blending two realities. Joe is touched and intrigued and asks the grandma what she wants. The grandma tells Joe about her agonizing pain from the illness. She says she wants to leave this world and says she is tired and sick and has nothing left here. She requests him to ease her pain by taking her soul. Joe tells her to close her eyes. The grandma thanks Joe and closes her eyes. Joe also closes his eyes and takes her soul. At the party, Joe finds Quince sitting alone on a table, looking unhappy and remorseful. Joe realizes that Quince has been deceived by Drew. He approaches Quince and asks him what's wrong. Quince confesses to Joe that Quince unknowingly let Drew take down Bill from the chairman position, and now Drew will ruin Bill's firm for his benefit. Joe tells Quince he has to face the consequences of his actions. Joe suggests Quince go to Bill straight up and confess his mistake. Bill realizes his death is near, so Bill meets with his daughter Allison and reconciles with her. He appreciates her efforts for the extravagant party and thanks her. In the evening, when the party officially starts, Joe meets Susan. Susan confesses her love for Joe, telling him she has adored him since meeting at the coffee shop. Joe hints to her about his real identity by asking a question. He asks Susan, "You know who I am?" Susan replies, "You're Joe." Susan's words break Joe's heart, and he finally realizes Susan loves the unknown man from the coffee shop, not him. Susan appears to sense that Joe's identity is magical. However, she denies the possibility that Joe might be the angel of death. Joe finally decides to put his love for Susan before his desire to take her with him. He gives up on the idea of taking her soul. Joe bids Susan farewell. He subtly confesses he isn't who he seems to be. Quince makes up his mind and decides to act on Joe's advice. He goes to Bill and apologizes for undermining the company. He tells Bill how Drew cunningly manipulated him for his vicious goal. Joe joins them. Bill, realizing Quince is genuinely sorry, forgives him. Bill decides to expose Drew's secret to the board members. He asks Quince to bring Drew into his home office, while he calls all the board members and makes them listen to the conversation. When Drew arrives, Joe meets him under the fake cover of an IRS agent. Joe tells Drew that he knows all his secrets. Joe informs the board of directors about Drew's shadowy business activities with Bill's rival company CEO. He asks Drew to resign immediately and threatens to put him in jail if he doesn't. Bill joins the birthday party and delivers the speech. He decides to spend his last moments with his daughters. He bids Susan farewell as they dance as father and daughter. Joe watches them from a hilltop. The party celebration concludes with fireworks, and Joe gets emotional. Bill meets with awaiting Joe on the hilltop, and Joe and Bill converse for a while. Bill asks Joe if he should be afraid. As the fireworks explode in the distance, Susan observes Joe and her father ascend to the top of the hill, cross the bridge, and then descend out of sight on the other side. Susan sees her father and Joe leaving and follows them. Susan is shocked when Joe re-emerges and comes back from the bridge. The angel of death has left with Bill, and the young man Susan first spoke with at the beginning of the film's coffee shop is now Joe. The young man, ignorant of what has happened between the time span of his death and his return, converses with Susan. After a brief conversation with the young man, Susan realizes this is not the man she fell in love with. Susan senses that her father has passed away and becomes sad. She laments the fact that both Joe and her father left, and that she is now speaking with the young man from the coffee shop. Susan says to the young man, "I wish you could have known my father." She then asks him, "What do we do now?" Joe replies, "It'll come to us." They hold hands as they return to the memorial service for Bill.
Thank you all for your support. If you want to watch more content like this, like and subscribe. Share your thoughts in the comments section, and I will see you next time. Stay curious.